Have you ever wondered what really happens right after our final breath? Do we simply fade into nothingness? Or do we begin a journey, mysterious, and maybe even deeper than life itself? And what if there was a hidden map, an ancient text written over 1,000 years ago, that claimed to guide us through what comes after death? Would you want to read it? That's exactly what the Bardo Thodol is. Widely known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But don't get it wrong. This isn't just a religious text. And it's certainly not superstition. It's a profound guide for the mind. From the very moment we leave our body, to the choices we unknowingly make about our next life, or even the chance to break free from the cycle of rebirth entirely. In today's video, we'll explore 10 little-known truths about what happens after death, through the lens of this sacred Tibetan wisdom. From the radiant light that meets us, to the surreal visions born from our own mind. And perhaps most surprising of all, your future after death might be shaped entirely by how you live right now. So stay with us until the end, because somewhere in this journey, you might just find a reflection of yourself. And who knows, maybe by understanding death, you'll finally learn how to truly live. When I was a child, I watched my grandmother take her last breath. I didn't understand much at the time. Just the faraway look in her eyes. And then, something softened in her face. But I do remember one very strange moment. The room went completely still, almost heavy with silence. As if the air itself was pausing with us. Years later, when I first read about the Bardo Thodol, I realized that what my grandmother experienced, and what I felt beside her, wasn't an ending at all. It was the beginning of something much deeper. According to Tibetan wisdom, the moment right after death is when the soul enters the first phase called Chitai Bardo, a transition between the physical world and the spiritual one. This is the moment when the body begins to dissolve. The breath stops, the heartbeat slows, and then a light appears. Not a hospital light, not a ceiling lamp, but a light from deep within. Tibetans call it the clear light. A pure, radiant awareness, the original nature of consciousness itself. It has no shape, no name. Just presence, pure and absolute. People who've had near-death experiences often describe it too. Dr. Mary Neal, an American orthopedic surgeon, said she felt herself melt into the light, a gentle, loving brightness that made her never want to return. So why don't most of us recognize that light? According to the Bardo Thodol, it's because of attachment. To the body, to loved ones, to unfinished plans. These attachments cloud our vision. Instead of merging with the light, the soul retreats. Afraid, confused. And loses what may have been its one chance at full liberation. And the lesson here runs deep. The most important moment of your life may not be when you're living it fully, but when you finally learn how to let go. This is why Tibetans read the Bardo Thodol at a dying person's bedside. Not to save the soul, but to gently remind it. The light is not to be feared. It is you. And if the soul recognizes that, there's no need to go further. No need to continue the journey. But most of us still unprepared. Keep going. And what comes next is a landscape of the mind itself, where angels and demons rise from the depths of our own consciousness. And so, if the soul fails to merge with the light, it continues the journey, deeper into the layers of the mind, where visions, both beautiful and terrifying, begin to take shape like never before. We'll explore that next. In this section, after the soul leaves the body and misses its chance to merge with the clear light, it enters a strange realm. A world without gravity, without form, where nothing remains but consciousness, and everything it has ever tried to hide. This is Chitai Bardo, the second phase of the journey after death. Imagine being trapped in a dream you can't wake up from. Now imagine that every thought you've ever had, Every emotion, every suppressed memory, starts to appear right in front of you, fully alive, fully real. That's what Bardo is. A space of the mind where visions, from angels to demons, arise vividly. But in truth, they are nothing more than reflections of your own inner world. In Tibetan tradition, these visions are divided into two groups. Peaceful deities, radiant, gentle forms symbolizing love, patience, and wisdom. Wrathful deities, intense, fearsome figures representing anger, envy, and unresolved desires. But here's the truth that might surprise you. There is no one there but you. These gods and monsters aren't external forces. They are your mind, unfiltered and unrestricted, taking shape in the only way it knows how. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Gods and demons are projections of the unconscious. They are inescapable until we recognize them as parts of ourselves." I once read a story about a woman who fell into a deep coma after a car accident. For 3 days, she drifted in a space that felt like a dream. Faces appeared, voices called out, and strange, beautiful, sometimes terrifying creatures surrounded her. But what struck her most wasn't the surreal quality. It was the familiarity. Each vision carried the shape of a memory, a fear, a piece of herself she had tried to forget. When she woke up, she said something I'll never forget. "I didn't meet God. I met myself. And I never knew just how complex I really was." In Bardo, if your mind is strong and aware, you can see through the visions, no matter how beautiful or frightening. You'll realize they are illusions, creations of your own consciousness. And in that realization, fear dissolves and freedom begins. But if you don't recognize this, you may try to run from the scary visions. Cling to the comforting ones. And in doing so, you remain caught in the wheel of rebirth. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. When you're afraid of something in your own mind, try turning toward it. It might just be a part of you that hasn't been loved yet. And if you can't hold on to that awareness, the visions won't stop with gentle lights or quiet messages. They will become louder, more emotional, more extreme, mirroring the unresolved conflicts still trapped deep within you. And so, we go deeper into this inner war. Into the next part of the journey, where the peaceful and wrathful visions collide. Join me in the next section. If there were ever a place that showed you, with complete honesty, everything you've ever thought, felt, feared, or longed for, it would be Bardo. There's no body left to hide behind. No more words to cover up what's inside. Just you. And all the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime trying to forget. In the Bardo Thodol, Bardo is not described as heaven or hell. It's more like a spiritual mirror, where every mask falls away, and you're left face to face with the deepest truths of who you are. This is where visions begin to emerge. Vivid, dreamlike, yet strikingly real. Some people witness stunning scenes. Radiant lights, floating lotus flowers, smiling deities, and soft bell tones that feel like a mother's lullaby. These are known as the peaceful deities. Manifestations of your highest inner qualities, compassion, patience, awareness, and forgiveness. But for those whose hearts still carry unresolved pain, anger, or regret, other visions appear, more intense, darker, more chaotic. These are the wrathful deities. Terrifying faces, piercing screams, grotesque forms that seem to leap from nightmares. But even these visions are not there to punish you. They are messengers. Reminders of the parts of you that still need healing. A doctor once shared the story of a stroke patient who survived a deep coma. In that state, the man described seeing a giant figure with burning eyes and a sword in hand. He was paralyzed by fear. But over time, he began to realize the figure looked a lot like himself. A version of him from the years he was angry, controlling, and hard on others, and on himself. And it wasn't until he whispered from the depths of his heart, "I forgive you," that the vision faded and turned into light. So what's the lesson here? The visions you see after death, whether beautiful or terrifying, are not rewards or punishments. They are your soul's final message. inviting you to look back and to embrace everything you've ever been. Tibetans believe, if you recognize that both gods and demons are you, then you have nothing left to fear. This is the ultimate test of Koni at Bardo. Not to conquer the visions, but to recognize their emptiness. To see that they are just projections of the mind. If you can look clearly, you pass through. If you panic or cling, you get pulled back into the spinning wheel of rebirth. And if the mind still isn't clear enough to move through those visions, the soul moves into the final stage, where the desire to live again rises powerfully. That's when a choice is made, even if you don't realize you're making it. We'll explore that next. There's an old Tibetan Buddhist saying, you can't take your money, your reputation, or even your body with you when you die. But what you do take is your mind, and everything you've ever planted inside it. In the realm of Koni at Bardo, where the visions of your consciousness reveal themselves, this isn't just a dreamscape. It's a stage where karma performs silently. And here, more clearly than ever, you understand. You can't escape yourself. In life, we learn how to avoid things. We smile even when we're sad. We stay polite even when we're seething. We bury our pain, hide our guilt, dodge responsibility. But once we die, when the body's shell falls away, everything we've repressed, every action we never made peace with, rises to the surface like a slow-motion film. A Buddhist monk from the US once shared his near-death experience after a motorcycle accident. In the seconds between life and death, he saw himself as a child lying to his mother and blaming his little sister. Then, a moment from his 20s appeared, where he lashed out at his girlfriend and hurt her deeply with his words. There was no judge, no punishment, just this overwhelming clarity. I was watching myself. I couldn't hide. I couldn't run. And I realized that every single thing I'd ever done, no matter how small, left a mark. This is karma. Not punishment. Not revenge. But the natural consequence of everything you've sown in your own mind. Karma is like a garden. Whatever seeds you've planted, flowers or weeds, will grow, given time. And after death, that garden blooms, with nowhere left to hide. The lesson here is simple, but powerful. No action disappears. Everything returns. Not to punish, but to help you understand, heal, and grow. Knowing this doesn't make death scarier. In fact, it makes life more meaningful. Because we begin to live more consciously, more kindly. Understanding that everything we do leaves a trace on the canvas of our mind. And so, once the soul has passed through this realm of karmic reflection, through visions of light and darkness, good and evil, fear and attachment, something familiar begins to stir. A deep longing to live again. To begin once more. This marks the entry into the final stage. Siddha Bardo. In the next part, we'll explore that powerful moment, when a new life is chosen, without even realizing it. Join us in. There's something strangely familiar that happens after the soul passes through the light, through the peaceful and wrathful visions. After confronting the deepest corners of its own mind, it doesn't vanish. It doesn't rest. Instead, something rises from within quietly at first, but unmistakably. I want to live again. This is Siddha Bardo, the third and final phase in the journey after death. Here, the soul begins to feel a strong, almost primal urge to exist again. Not for any particular reason, but simply the deep desire to be something. It may seem like a simple wish, but according to Tibetan wisdom, that very desire is the root of rebirth. At this point, the Bardo Thodol explains, karma begins to pull the soul like a magnet, drawing it toward a new life that matches the energy and patterns it still carries. You don't choose your next life with logic or conscious thought. You're drawn to it. by unresolved fears, lingering attachments, and deep-seated mental habits that haven't been released. A powerful image in the Bardo Thodol is the soul witnessing couples in union. This isn't literal, it's symbolic. It represents the opening into a new life. If the mind is still caught in desire or craving, the soul is pulled in toward conception and a new rebirth begins. At first glance, this may sound strange or mythical. But look closer, and you'll see. It's actually a beautiful metaphor. A way of describing how our mind reacts to what it encounters, even after death. I once heard a story from a longtime meditator. He described falling into a deep meditative state, where he felt himself spiraling downward fast and intensely. And at the center of that spiral, there was only one sensation: the desire to become someone, to do something, to exist again. There was no body, no voice, only a powerful craving to be. He told me, if I hadn't been aware at that moment, that urge would have pulled me into a new form before I even knew what was happening. And that's the deeper lesson here. We aren't reborn because some force out there makes us. We're reborn because of the things we haven't yet released. The pieces of ourselves we're still clinging to. Rebirth isn't bad. But when it comes from unconscious fear or automatic reaction, we often find ourselves reliving the same lessons in different forms over and over again. Still, there's hope. In Sitpa Bardo, if the soul is truly awake, if it can let go, it doesn't have to enter a new form. Instead, it can dissolve back into the original light. Beyond rebirth, beyond suffering. This is what all sincere spiritual seekers aim for. Not to escape life, but to understand rebirth so deeply that we are no longer ruled by it. And that understanding, that freedom, doesn't start after we die. It starts while we're still alive. In the next part, we'll explore how other traditions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and indigenous cultures, describe this same journey in their own way. Because even though the language and symbols may differ, many cultures seem to be pointing to the same deep, spiritual truth. Join me in. Whether you grew up in a Tibetan monastery, a Christian church, or a devout Muslim household, at some point in life, you probably asked the same question we all do. What happens after I die? It's a question that crosses borders, cultures, and even centuries. It belongs to all of humanity. And the strange, beautiful thing is, despite the differences in symbols and stories, many of the world's traditions describe a journey that feels surprisingly similar. In Christianity, it's believed that after death, the soul is judged. Its deeds weighed, its heart revealed. Those who lived righteously are welcomed into heaven, a realm of light, peace, and the presence of God. Those who lived in darkness fall into hell, a place of fire, suffering, and separation. Sound familiar? These two outcomes mirror what Tibetan Buddhism calls the Konyad Bardo. One path leads to union with the light, the other into fear, illusion, and suffering born from the mind itself. Crescent moon in Islam, the soul enters a middle realm called Barzakh, a kind of spiritual waiting room before the final day of judgment. Here, a person's beliefs and actions in life shape their next destiny. Barzakh closely resembles the Tibetan concept of Bardo, a transitional state where the soul is laid bare, facing its own truth. Fire in Hinduism, the soul, called Atman, is reborn into a new body, driven by the force of karma. A life well lived may lead to a higher birth. A life of harm or ignorance might bring the soul back in a more difficult form, to continue learning what it didn't yet understand. This, too, echoes Sitpa Bardo, where unresolved karma and emotional patterns pull the soul toward its next incarnation. Even among indigenous traditions, from Native American to African and Aboriginal cultures, death is not an end. It's a return. A sacred passage where the soul is purified and prepared to reunite with ancestors or the spirit world. So what does this tell us? That whether it's called heaven, nirvana, rebirth, barzakh, or bardo. These different faiths are all pointing toward a profound journey of the soul. A journey not determined by any external judge, but shaped from within. The takeaway here is gentle, yet powerful. Religions may differ in rituals, but at their core, they share the same longing. To be free from suffering, and to return to a place of original clarity and peace. When we understand this, we become more humble toward the beliefs of others, and more grateful for the spiritual path we're walking ourselves. And if so many traditions suggest that the mind is what determines everything after death, then maybe it's time we ask the next question. What about the people who've actually been there and come back? Those who've stepped across that mysterious threshold for a moment and returned to tell the tale. Do their stories match what the Bardo Thodol describes? We'll explore that in the next section. If you've ever thought the Bardo Thodol was just symbolic, just some ancient philosophy meant for monks and mystics, you might begin to reconsider when you hear the stories of people who've touched death and then came back. These are called near-death experiences, or NDEs. And they're no longer rare. In fact, thousands of people across the world have reported similar experiences. Their bodies shut down, their hearts stopped, yet their consciousness became clearer than ever before. One of the most well-known cases is that of Dr. Eben Alexander, a Harvard-trained neurosurgeon who was once deeply skeptical of anything beyond science. After falling into a deep coma due to meningitis, he described leaving his body, passing through darkness, and entering a realm filled with light, music, and a wordless understanding. He spoke of a feeling of absolute love, where I was no one, and yet, I was everything. Sound familiar? That's exactly what the Bardo Thodol calls the clear light of Chikai Bardo. The moment the soul meets its purest essence. Many others have shared accounts of watching their entire life flash before them. Not just as a movie, but as a deeply emotional experience. They say they felt the pain they caused others, and the joy they gave when they helped without expecting anything in return. There was no judge, no divine punishment, just a profound realization. I am responsible for everything I've ever put into this world. That's karma in the realm of Koniad Bardo, where no one condemns you, but where you face the honest truth of your own actions and intentions. One woman from California shared in an interview that she saw a brilliant, radiant light accompanied by music like angelic tones. She felt drawn to it. But as she got closer, a wave of fear and hesitation rose within her, and she was suddenly pulled back into her aching body. This is exactly what the Bardo Thodol describes. If the soul is afraid or clings to what's familiar, it won't recognize the light as its own true nature. And just like that, the opportunity for liberation fades. And the deeper lesson here? Near-death experiences aren't some strange miracle. They're reminders that you are far more than your physical body, and that everything you take with you when you die is you. People who return from NDEs often come back transformed. They slow down. They love more. They fear death less, because they've seen. What lies beyond is not nearly as frightening as we're led to believe. But if NDEs are rare gifts, experienced by only a few, what about the rest of us? Is there a way to prepare for that moment when it's our turn? That's what we'll explore in the next section. 3 common myths about death and the afterlife that keep us trapped. The 3 biggest misunderstandings that keep us stuck and unknowingly caught in the cycle of rebirth. We grow up hearing all kinds of stories about death. Some scare us. Some give us hope. But many ideas, while they might sound reasonable, can quietly mislead us and keep us trapped in the cycle of rebirth without even realizing it. Today, let's gently explore 3 of the most common myths about death and the afterlife. Misunderstandings that can prevent our minds from being truly free when we leave this life. Myth 1: death is the end of everything. This might be the most widespread belief in modern society. That when we die, everything stops. No more thoughts. No more feelings. No more me. It sounds practical. But it's also incredibly limiting. Because if you believe there's nothing after death, you won't prepare for it. You won't care about the quality of your mind, or learn how to let go, or clear emotional baggage. You'll live like this life is all about indulging in the moment, no matter the cost. But as we've seen through the Bardo Thodol and countless near-death experiences, consciousness doesn't vanish with your last breath. It simply shifts form, like water turning into mist. You're still you. You're just no longer carrying the body with you. Lesson: if you live like there's nothing after death, you'll be caught off guard and miss the one chance you had to awaken. Myth 2: only good or bad people go to heaven or hell. We often think that after death, the good go to heaven, and the bad are punished in hell. It sounds fair. But the truth is much more complex. And also more compassionate. According to the Bardo Thodol and many other spiritual traditions, no one is standing outside of you passing judgment. It is your own mind that reveals everything you've thought, done, and felt. And from there, you naturally move into the state that matches the energy you carry. I once heard a man share a dream he had after his mother passed away. He didn't see her suffering. She wasn't being punished for her mistakes. Instead, she was in what he described as a classroom of light, learning through reflection, gently facing herself. Lesson: no one is judging you, but your own unresolved actions will lead you to the school you need to attend next. Myth 3: you can't change your karma once you're close to death. One of the biggest fears people carry is, I'd made too many mistakes. It's too late for me. But in truth, it's never too late to wake up. In Tibetan tradition, even someone taking their final breath can achieve liberation, if in that final moment they can truly let go and recognize the clear, luminous nature of the mind. Take the story of Milarepa, one of Tibet's most revered masters. He once practiced dark magic to harm others out of revenge. But after awakening to the harm he'd done, he devoted his life to rigorous spiritual practice and ultimately reached full enlightenment. Not because he had a perfect past, but because he faced his karma head-on without running away. Lesson: there is no past stronger than a single moment of awakening. And death is our final invitation to awaken. When we let go of these three myths, a new space opens up, where death isn't an enemy, but a wise teacher. Where we no longer fear what comes next, because we understand what happens after death depends entirely on how you meet yourself right now. So if you truly want to prepare for the journey beyond death, what can you do starting today? That's exactly what we'll explore next in 9. How to prepare for the Bardos while you're still alive. A gentle, practical guide to help you live fully and lead this life in peace and awareness. There's a Tibetan saying that I've carried with me for years. If you wait until death to learn how to let go, it may already be too late. But if you begin now, death becomes an open door, not a wall, not an ending. Everything the Bardo Thodol describes, the light, the visions, the rebirth, isn't just something that happens after we die. These are states of mind we already move through, every single day. So the best way to prepare for death is to start learning how to live with awareness right now. 1. Meditation, to make peace with your mind. Meditation isn't about sitting still or clearing your mind. It's about getting familiar with the one thing you can't escape after death, your own consciousness. You don't need hours a day. Start with just 5 to 10 minutes. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Watch your breath. Don't try to change anything. Just observe. Much like in Coney at Bardo, You'll begin to see your inner visions. Your worries, hopes, frustrations, memories. And instead of running, you'll learn to sit with them. To befriend them. I once taught meditation to a 78-year-old woman. She said, "I don't think I can do this. My mind is too messy." But a week later, she smiled and said, "You know what? Every morning before I look in the mirror, I check in with my mind first to see what I'm carrying today." That's meditation. Not mysterious. Not far away. Just coming home to yourself. 2. Write a will for the soul. This may sound strange, but try this exercise. If today were my last, what would I want to let go of? What am I still carrying that no longer serves me? Am I living in alignment with what I truly believe matters? Write it down. Not to plan your death, but to remind yourself how to live more honestly. Because as the Bardo Thodol teaches, the only thing you take with you when you die is the quality of mind you've been building every day. 3. Talk to death so it doesn't scare you. Try this gentle practice. Once a week, take 5 minutes to sit quietly and think about death. Not as something scary, but like an old teacher dropping by for a visit. Ask that teacher, "If I only had 1 month left, what would I do differently? Who do I need to forgive? Who should I thank? Am I really living the way my heart wants to live?" These moments will help you live more deeply and let go more peacefully when the time comes. The takeaway here is simple but powerful. You don't have to wait until your final breath to start practicing liberation. Every mindful day, every loving act, is a step toward preparing for your final journey. And when you live this way, death doesn't feel like a stranger. You've already met it. In every quiet moment of release, forgiveness, stillness, and gratitude. So when that moment finally comes, you won't ask, "Where am I going?" You'll smile and say, "I'm ready because I have truly lived." So if everything begins and ends with one thing, what is it that you'll carry with you when you go? In the final part of our journey, we'll reflect on that question together. In part 10, the final question, what will you bring with you when you die? One quiet afternoon, I visited an old friend nearing the end of his battle with cancer. He didn't have much strength left, but his eyes, they were brighter than I'd ever seen them. I asked him gently, "Are you afraid?" He smiled and replied, "No. Because I know the only thing I'll take with me is what I gave away with my heart." We spend our whole lives gathering things. A house, a career, degrees, praise, plans for the future. But when death finally knocks, none of that comes with us. What remains is the quality of our soul. When you enter the Bardo, as the Bardo Thodol describes, you won't be asked how much money you had, how many people followed you, or how famous you were. You'll be asked just one question. How deeply did you love? Love isn't just a feeling. It's presence. It's listening without interrupting. It's a message sent for no reason other than to say, "I'm thinking of you." It's a hug at the right moment. It's forgiveness for others and for yourself. You don't need to be a monk. You don't need to have read sacred texts. If you've ever touched someone's life with genuine kindness and love, you've already begun the journey back home. A wise elderly woman once said, "When I die, I won't take anything with me. But I hope someone will carry me in their softest memories." The final lesson and final reminder is this. You can't bring luggage with you when you leave this body, but you can carry light. If you've ever created it in someone else's heart. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing about death. That it's not a period, but a doorway back to the purest, truest, most eternal part of who you really are. If you've stayed with me all the way to this final part, I believe you're no longer seeing death with fear, but with a new perspective. One of clarity and peace. If this video meant something to you, please share it with someone you love. And remember, we don't study death to learn how to leave. We study it to learn how to live fully and with presence every moment we're here. Thank you for listening. Wishing you a meaningful life and a final journey as gentle as the wind.